Hi everyone. So, in full transparency, I had started this blog weeks ago at this point, probably about 3 weeks ago. It is now Halloween weekend, Halloween Eve weekend, and it's Friday. I just got back from the office, and I thought that I would attempt to start this reading vlog in earnest with a little mini book haul of books I picked up recently. I was inspired because I have a package of books that just arrived that I ordered a couple weeks ago that just came in the mail, so I thought that I would share those with you. One of the books that I'll talk about, I already read. I just finished it a couple days ago, and I loved it so much, and I truly feel like it was made for me, like the author, the writing, the setting, the historical time period, the story, like everything just called my name. So I bought a hardback, which was obviously expensive, and I'm so glad. It was absolutely worth it. But I got The Marriage Portrait by Maggie. This is the author who wrote Hamnet, which I absolutely loved. It was so heartbreaking and beautiful. This study of this family, these interdependencies, the study on grief. And I remember the character of Hamnet's mother. I'm forgetting her name now, but she was like one of my favorite characters that I read about last year. So this book, I feel like, is made for me because it's set in 1550s Florence. We're following Lucrezia de' Medici. She's the daughter of Cosimo de' Medici, which I'm familiar with in the sense of, like, I love to study this time period, but I've also watched all dramas focused on the Medicis set in Florence and like this Tuscan energy. I loved this book. I thought it was beautiful, heartbreaking, intimate. I thought this was essentially like a perfect novel for me. So I would highly recommend, if you loved Hamnet, even if you didn't, or are just like not familiar, I thought this was like a beautiful coming of age story. The study of a young girl being put in really uncomfortable and unfair situations. The story goes that Lucrezia de' Medici was married off to the Duke of Ferrara when she was a young child, and a year later she was dead. And the story is, or the belief is, that she was poisoned by her husband, and it tells that story, and you know from the first page that you're prepared for her death, which happened with Hamnet as well. So a really similar process of going through the book, of being introduced to the tragedy, growing to love your characters, knowing they'll be taken away from you, like the same thing. And I thought it was beautifully written, like so heartfelt. So I loved it. The other book that I got in the same day, which I'm about halfway through now, is an Ursala K. Le Guin book. I had started, this lighting is not great, I had started The Dispossessed a long time ago now, maybe the beginning of summer, and I wasn't loving it. And then I was away with my family, and I had brought a couple of books and was not really vibing with The Dispossessed, and I gave it to my dad to read. And if I'm remembering correctly, he was also less than impressed. So I actually never brought it back to the city from my parents' house because I just I wasn't being called to The Dispossessed. But I'm really in this mood of like reading high fantasy, historical fiction. Those tend to be something I'm drawn to, like at this time of year. I read a couple of really good fantasy books in September, and they just got me in the vibe. So I picked up Earthsea, or A Wizard of Earthsea, the first book in the Earthsea world. I'm not sure if it's considered a series or if it's just this world that Le Guin builds upon with different novels. So I'm really enjoying it. It's a little bit poetic, in the language and the writing actually surprised me. I thought it would be almost easier to read. I'm not sure why I thought that, but it's really beautiful. Once you get in a rhythm, it's a little bit easier to read. I was just kind of thrown by it at the beginning, but it's a coming-of-age novel, a story about a man growing into his power, but also strengthening his bond with the natural world. So it's beautiful, it's quiet, and I'm enjoying it. And then, sorry, I've also been sick for like weeks. I went to a wedding, and then after that, I'm sick. It's not COVID. It's just your run-of-the-mill feeling like crap situation. So I also have this book that I'm not super familiar with, but my friend is working with the author. It's a debut novel, and she offered to share it with me. She thought that I would be interested. So it is about, I will just read you the blurb because I'm not super familiar. So Claudia lives in a very small town in southern Italy where the cobblestone streets are so narrow you can't have a car, not that there is any money for one. No money, no food, and barely any education. All around her is poverty and nothing to do but marry a local boy and start a family of her own. But Claudia has a feeling that there's more for her out in this world. One fateful night from a distant relative and suddenly she... One fateful visit, from a distant relative, and suddenly she knows what she needs to do. Despite all the obstacles she knows she will face, Claudia sets out on a very difficult and unknown journey. So a little bit of Elena Ferrante, My Beautiful Friend energy, perhaps. This is not super high on my priority list, but I'm excited to read it when I get to it. As you all know, I haven't been able to read as often as I would like. So I'm really trying to stick with books that I love, but also I am just a little bit pickier with what I'm taking off my shelves because I don't like to DNF. I feel frustrated with myself even if I'm not enjoying something, so I'm just really specific about what I want to read because I'm reading like 4 to 5 books a month on a good month. And to be fair, I am reading chunkier books, so that also like takes a lot of my time, and I'm enjoying it. It's like a slower process of reading. I feel like last year I was inhaling a lot of books, and only the ones that I loved or felt like they like opened my mind really stuck with me, which is fine. But now I feel like I'm taking a little bit more time. I'm really being thoughtful about the books I choose. Sorry, I'm opening a package. I ordered 2 books. And I know what I got, but it's almost like a present to myself. So, because I ordered them so long ago. And I could get scissors, but I don't want to get up. Okay, so we have 2 books here. One that I heard about so long ago, forgot about, and then it's spooky season, and I'm not reading really spooky books. I'm reading some fantasy books. Actually, one book I read last month I do think was spooky. And then this month, it's October, and my book club that I had joined is reading The Shining, and I want to participate, and I'll probably still go to the event and the meetup because I want to go, but I am not reading The Shining again this month. I read it in 2020, maybe in 2021, I think 2020, and I really liked it, but it's long. I know it will take me forever, and I still remember it pretty vividly, so I don't feel a need to read it again. And I've been watching enough spooky films to really get the vibe. I don't need to reread The Shining. I'm taking a big break from Stephen King after, what was that book that I read last October, or listened to? It's a year. I don't remember, but I hated it so much that now I'm like turned off by Stephen King in such a way that I don't know if I'll ever get over it, because that book, no. Okay, so what I was saying, and I'm not sure how to pronounce this author's first name, but it's Moon of the Crusted Snow. The author's last name is Rice. But I am so excited about this. Here we go. It's like an environmental thriller about this indigenous community, I'm pretty sure. But I'll also just read you the blurb because the author can speak for themselves. So the header is, as one society collapses, another is reborn. With winter looming, a small northern Anishinaabe community goes dark. Cut off from power and communication, with no foreseeable resolution, only very few residents truly realize the community's shortfalls. When unexpected visitors arrive, escaping the crumbling society to the south, tensions rise and allegiances are divided. The harsh winter months pass slowly, and the food supply dwindles as the death toll and panic rise. But the greatest threat to survival of the reserve might come from within the community itself. Come on, that sounds so good. It's not a super chunky book. I'm really going to try to read this after I finish A Wizard of Earthsea. Super excited about this. And then we have a book that is really big that I'm not prioritizing this month, but hopefully before the end of the year, and I'm realizing that I really hate this cover. But I picked up this book because my company was doing like a little treat of buy a book, we'll pay for it, which I'm not too sure why, but I gladly accepted. And I picked up Perdido Street Station by China Mieville. I've heard him, not in content or writing style, but in the weirdness element, be compared to Jeff Vandermeer, which you know. Oh, where I reorganized. Jeff Vandermeer's up here now, but I just wanted something weird and uncomfortable and nitty gritty, and to be like dropped into a world. The book I read a couple weeks ago now, Ordinary Monsters, which is a new release or fairly recent release, had that same kind of vibe, and that's just, I really felt like immersed in that world. It was a far from perfect book, but I enjoyed it. So it's not a great cover. I am bummed. I honestly didn't pay attention to the cover. I just saw the title and clicked it. So I will read you the blurb because I'm not too familiar. I just thought this was like his most popular book that I could find. The metropolis of New Crobuzon sprawls at the center of the world. Humans and mutants and arcane races brood in the gloom beneath its chimneys, where the river is sluggish with unnatural effluent and foundries pound into the night. For 1,000 years, the Parliament and its brutal militias have ruled over a vast economy of workers and artists, spies and soldiers, magicians, crooks, and junkies. Now a stranger has arrived, with a pocketful of gold and an impossible demand, and something unthinkable is released. The city is gripped by an alien terror. The fate of millions lies with a clutch of renegades. A reckoning is due at the city's heart, in the vast edifice of brick and wood and steel under the vault of Perdido Street Station. It is too late to escape. This sounds really, really good. I'm also kind of on my alien invasion kick, I guess, because I just read the second book in the, I don't know if you would call it the Rosewater trilogy, the Wormwood trilogy. I'm not actually sure what it's called as a unit, but I read Insurrection, which is the second book by Tate Thompson about the continued alien takeover situation. Loved it. Probably loved it more than the first book, which never happens in terms of a series. So, sounds incredible. So that's kind of my mini book haul. Not that I have literally any room for more books. If you don't know, we have renewed our lease for another year. And while I love our little tiny abode, it doesn't necessarily have the capacity to support my growing collection of books, which is probably good for me in the long run to stop myself and only buy a book when I desperately need it. But I did feel like I desperately needed all of these. So, so that's my little haul. Here's my mini pumpkin. Oh, and I also have a gourd. This is all we have the space for, but this is really all I could ask for. And it's Friday, so I am going to relax. I'm actually riding solo in the city tonight because my boyfriend went home. So I am going to probably chill tonight. I had a long week, and then tomorrow I will socialize. But I'm going to relax, clean up the apartment, probably watch a movie. I'm kind of lost in what I should watch next because obviously House of Dragon finished last week. I mean, I always knew I was going to love it, and it didn't disappoint. I thought it was incredible. I thought the acting was amazing. I loved all of the actors. But only like a week before that, Rings of Power ended. So like both of my shows that were consuming my mind and really occupying so much of my free time both ended. And I loved Rings of Power. I very recently binged all of the Lord of the Rings and the Hobbit movies, which were really new to me. I'm not like a huge fan, so just watching, now I am, but I'm not like in the Lord of the Rings culture, so watching Ring of Power while a lot of other people were highly critical, I just thought it was like such good cinematography. Some of the acting was not great. Some of it was cringe, but Some of it was great. I thought like the sets, the costumes, the storylines, everything was so intricate. I loved it, and now I'm like, when are they bringing that back? Because I keep seeing like stories and news articles that was like the most expensive television show ever made. So I'm like, okay, so they'll come up with season 2 in like 3 years. I don't know if I can wait for that. So I need to find a new show. If you have any recommendations, let me know. I've heard about a couple, like The Watcher, but those kind of like creepy shows are not really I'm not drawn to those. I gave up on The Patient. I was not enjoying it at all. So if you have any shows that you think I might like, let me know, because that's what I'm looking for. But yeah, I'm gonna actually probably go to a wine bar with my book, go solo, be a grown-up about it, and I will check in tomorrow. So I finished A Wizard of Earthsea yesterday. I went to that wine bar for a couple hours, finished it. It's honestly a pretty quick and easy read, and I liked it. I understand why Le Guin is so beloved. She does the fantasy thing in a really unique way. There's no grand wars happening. It's not political. It's not bureaucratic. It's really about nature. It's a coming of age. It's a really quiet book. And there are, like, the magic is seamlessly like a part of the world, but it's not, like, there's no big exciting moments. Like, even the moments where our main character is facing a dragon to the death, it's like a quiet, peaceful, on to the next kind of story. But I liked the main message a lot. It was really beautiful, and it's nice to try a fantasy book that is so markedly different from everything else I read. So I will continue on in the Earthsea world. I'm not rushing to do that, but I liked it. And it was kind of like a cozy, warm hug of a book. So I get why people love it. So yeah, I don't know how I feel about it. I think for me, the best part is the actual like world building, or just how Le Guin really thought about like all of the islands, all of the different communities, how they might differ, and really created this world for Jed or Ged, I'm not sure how you pronounce his name, to navigate through in his like early adolescence. So now it is Saturday. I had a very productive morning. Went to the gym, went grocery shopping, cleaned the apartment. So I really desperately need to do laundry, but I am not interested in doing that right now. But I'm gonna go to a coffee shop, start Moon of the Crusted Snow, and just hang out and have a coffee because I haven't had one yet, and it is about noon. When I got back yesterday, I was far too lazy to try to pick a new show, so I just continued on my rewatch of Gilmore Girls, and I'm not like one of those really intense Gilmore Girl fans. I sometimes really like it, sometimes really hate it, but it's at a good part right now, so it's like an easy watch, cozy, autumnal, and I will figure out my new my next grand like adventure show that I will invest my time and energy into. But I'm gonna get going. It's glorious out. It's cold, but it's sunny. So I am in my fall attire and I am ready to go.